Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
I think I'm okay.
Do you have the COVID?
I don't.
Do you have the vapors?
Nope, I'm actually pretty clean.
Do you have the Taco Bells?
No, nobody will get me tacos anymore.
Yes, they will. Just call DoorDash.
Not the same.
Yeah, but they bring them to you.
When I was younger, my daughters used to, Dad, can we go for Taco Bell? Sure. But then somewhere along the, they just decided they didn't like Taco Bell anymore.
If I remember right, when Dana was overseas for college, the one thing she missed, she didn't miss you.
Nope.
She didn't miss her mom.
Nope.
Didn't miss her friends. Didn't miss her sister. She missed Taco Bell.
Oh, yeah.
And now she has betrayed Taco Bell.
There was a time when Dana and I were out geeking, and it was like Chris knew we had hit the source because, she kind of texted, hey, don't spend too much money, which means she was actively watching like our TCF card as I would charge things going across. And so I told her, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit every Taco Bell between here and home. And each place just order one item and we'll eat it and we'll get to the next one and do it. And so we had about 3-4 Taco Bells ready to go. After about the third one, she texted and said, what the hell are you guys doing? So just seeing if you're noticing.
So she was stalking you via your debit card.
Yep. So, but now I've got a lot on my my own debit card, tied to my PayPal/eBay stuff. So it rarely happens. It happens occasionally. No, but then there's like things like all of a sudden the other day I got charged $0 on a Kickstart on a regular account, and I was like, "What is this?" I have no idea why they charged us $0. I said it either means one of two things: they either refused to pay it, or in fact it was $0. And I went and Kickstart, and everything I've gave money to is either not shipped yet or I've already got. I didn't get any notices saying, hey, your funding didn't go through, because usually they do if something, does happen like that. So that's kind of just a mystery, So, but like I said, I haven't got any Kickstart stuff lately, and I'm waiting. Oh, I'm a generous guy. I love to give.
Give. That's all we do here.
Oh, ain't nothing but give.
Except the one thing you won't give is a bucket of Sketti.
Oh.
For new listeners, we should explain the Bucket of Sketti.
Bucket of Sketti, yep.
What it is, the shop owner who owned the shop that Joe bought, bought it from.
Yep.
Now, I have never seen the Bucket of Sketti. I've only heard about it.
I have actually seen it once.
But didn't he have a bucket of spaghetti, a 5-inch black and white TV, and was watching Star Wars?
That's the story Butch tells. I only remember
a bunch of spaghetti watching Star Wars on a little 5-inch screen broadcast TV. Yep, just as good as being in the theater.
I recall it when he was at Hot Comics Edina, and he actually had the bucket of Sketti, and I went with one meatball today. So maybe I had assumed the place he bought it was in Edina, but maybe he just bought it somewhere else and just brought it with him.
It could be. I'm actually going to look up Bucket of Spaghetti.
Bucket of Sketti. Yep. Ain't nothing better.
Let's see. There's spaghetti pasta, 5-gallon bucket. Papa Dante's Italian restaurant family-friendly bucket. I'm sorry, man. If you're buying food in a bucket. Pasta bucket. I'm not finding any here in the Twin Cities. So let's put in.
Maybe it's, well, and again, this was like years ago, so maybe.
Well, I know there was the old spaghetti factory downtown.
If we ever make it over to Historian, we'll have to ask him where
Papa
it's at.
Dante's is in Texas.
It's possible he might have take a run at the Sketty's good enough.
Bucket Tuesdays. Doesn't say where. Nope, doesn't say where it is. Looks like it's an old ad.
Yep.
Nope, I'm not able to find the Bucket of Sketti. Maybe he made it himself.
Could be.
Could be.
It's a mystery for another day.
Well, you know what the mystery is for today, Joe?
And why we're living in this cold ass state.
I know. My parents are freaked out that I enjoy the cold so much because when I was a kid, I hated cold. But I'm kind of the opposite. The older I get, the more I hate when it gets hot. Once it gets to 85 degrees and the humidity's like here in Minnesota, humidity's like, I don't know, 150%. Once it gets to 85 degrees, it's like, I am melting. This is terrible.
Yeah. I gotta admit, I don't like extreme heat with extreme humidity. When I was down in the desert Southwest on one of my deployments, I didn't mind the dry heat, like Vegas gets and, places like that. But up here, we had sub-zero temperatures. And I think it was a third record for consecutive days under zero. Now, here's how cold it can get in Minnesota. Early records, like back in the 1800s, I think our record is 186 hours of below zero. The only reason it's not higher is because there were 4 hours where it actually got above zero and then plummeted again. Had those 4 hours not occurred, our record would be like 350 hours of below zero. Now, I take that in perspective because I know our listeners in Texas are just getting their asses handed to them. Most of them, where they have the weird power grid. Cold, no water, no heat. This is a life-threatening situation going on. Out east, snowstorm after snowstorm, in between ice. Even in Portland, where a buddy of mine, Pete, lives, it's like he got like 6 to 8 inches of snow, and they're not used to it. They're not ready for it. Up here, we just got bright sunshine with sub-zero cold. And really, there's two things you do. You either just stay indoors, or when you do go outside, make sure you're bundled up. We lucked out in one way that there wasn't what we call a wind chill. For those of you living in very warm areas, this is where when the wind hits your face, and so it may be, 10 below zero, but this is where it feels like 40 below to your bare skin, which means it freezes and you get frostbite 10 to 30 seconds in very dangerous situations. This is where you get dumb people because they're like, oh, I'm just going out to my car, and they don't bring gloves or a hat, and then they drop their keys in the snow and they fumble or the car is frozen and blah, blah, blah. No, just put the gloves on. You can be fine. Because like I said, we had almost no wind chill, just sub-zero temperatures, bright cold. My truck started. If I didn't have to go anywhere, work, I just stayed home. So, it's very survivable. It's definitely not a life situation, life-threatening.
As long as your house stays warm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's always some people where they're like, oh, crap, my furnace just gave out. But, to have no furnace or no heat whatsoever. That's even something we did when Chris and I were planning to go out of town, and we didn't, as chronicled in previous podcasts. Here's what we need, like a little guy to just say, please see podcast number 403. No. Maybe we can hire someone to do that. We'll
get Roy Thomas to do it. He loves footnotes.
Oh, yeah, footnotes all over the place.
Listen to episode 412, True Believer, except with Roy Thomas, it'd go nuts. And he'd go, yeah, you need to listen to, you need to listen to Jack Benny's show on August 4th of 1938. True Believer.
Oh,
Roy, calm down.
Well, we just covered with the kids what to do if the worst happen. You know, the power's out, the furnace isn't working, temperature's dropping. When the cut and get out of the house time happens, and you know the big thing, of course, get the pets out. Number one thing for us, of course, is always the water pipes. You know, how to turn them off, how to drain them. You know, turn the lowest faucet open in the house, turn the highest open, let the water drain out. If you're actually going to stay, fill the bathtub with water, because guess what? That's how you're going to flush your toilet. You know, we talked about using the fireplace, you know, even candles. You know, light some candles for light. They give out a surprising amount of heat. But eventually, if it was long enough, you get to a point where the temp just is going to keep dropping, and you just want to winterize the house and head somewhere else. Hotel, head to my parents, their parents, whatever. It's kind of like everything, you know. How do you turn off the gas? Don't. Get the fuck out of the house. You smell gas, you hear a just run, because you do anything, that sucker's going to explode. Or call 911, but not in the house. You know, just little things like that.
And one of the things I actually bought them a few years ago, because there was that summer, I think 5 years ago, when the power kept going out because they were upgrading the power in the neighborhood, but they didn't seem to know quite how to do it. I have a crank radio cell phone charger, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I have a crank flashlight and a crank lantern. And by crank, I don't mean the kind of person who calls up talk radio and says, you know, the earth is flat, right? No, it's where you take it and you crank it for, I don't know, about 5 minutes or so, and you get a couple hours worth of light or power or whatever. Those are good to have, but in the winter.
The crank from electric company.
I don't remember crank from electric company.
He was always angry about something.
Oh, kind of like Floyd R. Turbo on Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
Or George Liquor. Still mad we never got a George Liquor cartoon.
American.
But you know what you could do when the weather's bad and you can't go out and you have to stay in the house? Read funny books.
Oh, heck yeah.
And that's what Joe and I have been doing.
We have.
So we're going to review some. Joe?
Now, I always have a twist because, you know, I don't like to do things straight. Because it's no secret that I've been trying to eliminate a lot of comics in my collection, which is always interesting because I seem to add as many as I get rid of. But I do have various boxes around the house filled with either complete and ready to rock miniseries, you know, where I can read the whole story. Some of them, you know, I talk about on here, and then some of my eBay. But I also found a box full of one-shots. I'm kind of, I waffle on one-shots. I do like the idea that here's a complete story. But then I also, some of these things I read, and I'm like, why couldn't you just put this in the regular story? I mean, obviously, a couple of them I'm going to read about wouldn't have worked, you know, especially like if you want to do a Hulk story in the middle of what's going on with Immortal Hulk. So you do a one-shot. The first one, I'll let Cory decide here because I read two. Cory, do you want me to read about Hulk versus Hercules or Hulk versus Fang, Foom?
I think you've already talked about Hulk versus Hercules, so let's go with Fang, Foom.
All right, so this is a one-shot. Let's see, written by Peter David, so that's always a plus. Lucky George Lucas did the pencils. Robert Campanella doing inks.
George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars?
Close enough, Jorge. This is an untold tale, Hulk versus Fang, Foom. In the left corner, with lime green skin, originally weighing only 128 pounds, this massive fighter managed to pack on an additional 1,000 pounds in the past 5 seconds. This gamma-powered behemoth was once only a puny physicist, Bruce Banner, until the gamma bomb he transformed him transforms him into an awesome, all-smashing machine. Now, as the Incredible Hulk, he says he's the strongest there is, and if anyone tells him differently, he gets angry. And fans like it when he's angry. In the right corner, and then more avocado hue, a true terrifying heavyweight at a whopping 20 tons, the horror from Caracas, the mighty dragon lord Fang Foom. Having crash landed on Earth a millennia ago, Lord Foom woke up angry, something about no genitalia, rampaging across the surface of the Earth and leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. When he's not using his limbs to shatter mountains and his back to scrape the sky, this former starship navigator can change his size and shape, biding his time to rise again. Both fighters will be wearing purple trunks. We apologize for the confusion. By the way, stick around after the fight for a replay of Foom's first Earth bout. I think that's just the first page. So I think I pretty much summed up this thing. It's just a standalone fight between Hulk and Fang Foom. Pretty good story, pretty good fight. Inconsequential ending, as Marvels want to do. What was really cool was that they do reprint Fang Foom's first appearance from, tell him, Strode.
That would be Tales to Astonish. I don't remember the actual issue, but wasn't it Tales to Astonish, or was it Tales Tales of Suspense?
Which sense, because it was a Tales, but it was Strange Tales 89.
Oh, Strange Tales. Okay.
Now, what was cool about this is I had never read that story. I can't afford it. I know there's probably a reprint of it somewhere, but I was more enamored with the reprint because, of course, it takes place inside the totalitarian regime of Red China. And it starts, of course, with the Red Chinese all ready to attack the island of Formosa. And so what this guy does is one of the heroes decides he goes out and he fights his way through the temple and awakens the creature, Fang Foom, which, of course, makes Fang Foom very grateful. But, of course, that's not why he woke Fang Foom. He woke him so that Fang Foom would become enraged and try to attack him. Now, Cory, have you ever read this story?
A long time ago.
Do you remember how to awake him?
No.
There are two types of herbs. One to make the monster sleep, and the other to arouse him, and you just brush it across his lips. No idea if that was ever referred to again, but that is good. Something to know in case you happen to run into Fang Foom.
And you want to arouse him.
Yes, I mean, and if you wake him, he's usually pretty happy about that. But so this guy
not in Next Wave.
No, well, he was mad for other reasons. But this guy leads Fang Foom across territory with just very, very. I mean, he's inches away from doom, but as he gets there, he finally gets to the battalion of armed troops, and as he runs through them and goes through the barracks and through the weapons and through the ships, Fang Foom basically obliterates the Red Army, saving the island. But now he's got to get him back to the cave. Does he? Well, I'm not going to ruin it. Go out and find your own copy of Strange Tales 89. Or better yet, go find Hulk versus Fang Foom. Because not only do you get the first appearance, which is always fun. I think it's brilliant when Marvel does this, either in a one-shot or in True Believers. But you also get a Peter David tale of the untold tale of destruction, doom, and terror. So let's see. What year did this sucker? This was 2008, so not too long ago. Not tremendously collectible, so you should be able to pick up a cheap copy somewhere and actually have some fun with it. That's my first one, Cory. What about you?
Out on DC's digital, there is a series they are putting out for this month for the Black History Month called Represent. And what it is, each issue is a nonfiction story. Let me take that back. There is a nonfiction story in there, but each story is a story not set in the superhero universe, done by Black creators. And I want to pull up the first one I read? The first issue is by, let's see, the writer is Regine Sawyer, who is a Queens-based comic book writer and small press publisher, also a founder of Women in Comics Collective International. The artist is Eric Battle. Joe, where would people know Eric Battle from?
I'm drawing a blank.
I would think you as a huge fan of Savage Dragon would know this. He worked with Eric Larson a lot over the years. I do believe he has drawn the Savage Dragon spin-offs Freak Force and many of the other spin-offs. His art has really grown and progressed over the last few years to where when I'm looking at this art, it looks like Colleen Duran as if Neil Adams was inking it. It's beautiful art, utterly beautiful art. And the story is about a little girl who, the way her and her father would bond is they would go to the grocery store together and they would cook together, and he wanted her to grow up to be a doctor or a lawyer, but she wants to grow up to be a chef. And the story is a short 13-page story about that, about her kind of becoming her own person, how the parents kind of get over their disappointment because she is so good at what she does and so passionate about what she does. It's available digitally, but the thing about it is I'm looking at Eric Battle's art through the whole thing. This is not a story with a lot of fight scenes. This is a purely emotional story. And that Colleen Duran influence, where she's able to do such good work with the emotions on people's faces, really comes through in this. If I were a comic book editor and somebody showed me this, I would have Eric Battle signed up and under contract so that he couldn't go anywhere else in a heartbeat. The art on this is utterly amazing. The story is very well done in that it's a comic book story that anybody can enjoy and anybody can relate to, but it also harkens into how African-American parents have such high aspirations for their children and what they do when their children want to go off on another path. Because other cultures have that as well, but each culture deals with it differently. Joe, I don't know what Dana wanted to be when she was a little girl, but you know, when somebody asks your child what do they want to be when they grow up, you're always thinking you want them, you know, the best for them, and sometimes they go off in other directions. My son loves cooking, absolutely adores it, is really good at it, but he would much rather work forklifts and work in a warehouse because he doesn't have to think real hard about it, and he can kind of do it on autopilot.
I wanted my daughter to be Madonna. I wanted my daughter to be Madonna, mainly because I thought it was funny when she had her dad, and I think it was Rosie O'Donnell was with her, on the Tonight Show, Jay Leno, and Jay's like, so has she bought you anything? Yep, bought me a riding tractor. He was such a salt of the earth guy, you know. And have you ever seen what your daughter is doing? And she's like, Jay, in front of my daddy. So I always tell her, grow up to be Madonna so you can buy me a riding tractor.
You don't have enough yard for a riding tractor.
Yeah, but if she was Madonna, I could.
Oh, okay, I suppose. Let's see, what is this next one here? The next one is about a bird watcher who has to deal with the fact that when you're doing bird watching, you may show up in places that some people may not want you to be. And if you're a comic book editor, this has happened to you. Oddly enough, the editor who had to deal with that wrote this story. This is the third one. And again, the art, I've never seen art by Althea Martinez. Inks are by Mark Morales. Beautiful stuff. Just really beautiful stuff. The story is very touching, but it's also in, most comic book artists that we know of. They are really good at the superhero stuff, but not good at the personal stuff. This entire series is all about the personal stuff. And this one by Martinez, she has to draw birds that look exactly the way they're supposed to in close-up. So, what was it? John Buscema always said that he would do anything he could to get out of drawing cars. And when you look at the cars he drew, you could see why. This is an artist who is drawing plants, birds, flowers, none of the stuff that people get excited about drawing. No one gets into comic books and says, man, I can't wait to draw foliage. But it's a really good series. It's going to be in the DC Universe app, probably in about 6 or so months. But you can also go to Comixology or DCComics.com to pick them up. It's going to be a 4-issue series. Cory gives it a buy. Joe?
All right, let's see. The next one, another one-shot from Marvel. This one is Kid Colt. Let's see. Wanted. Blame Kid Colt Cole. Kill the Kid. Tom DeFalco wrote it. Rick Burchett artist. This dates 2009. And there's not a lot of Westerns being published, which I suppose is fine. Probably doesn't sell. This was kind of neat because it's a character I'm aware of, and it's also because it was done in one. The art is fairly clean, fairly straightforward. In other words, you recognize who is who, which is always a nice thing to do. The myth behind Kid Colt is that apparently he's been falsely accused of gunning down a farmer. The sheriff that was accusing him wanted the land the farmer owned, and so they do cover the origins of him in the book. But essentially, Kid Colt is running around looking for a witness that can come and clear his name. So it starts out, as all good places do, in a bar with food, and of course, a lot of gun slaying going on. And basically, when it looks like someone's got the drop on Kid Colt, somebody comes up and helps out Kid Colt, and they were able to get away. And throughout the story, the sheriff, of course, is going crazy. He hires, he puts his guys out to get him. He hires a bounty hunter to get going. When he runs across one of the guys in the middle of the night, Kid Cole's there, and he says, "Yep, I stumbled upon a rumor about you and some judge that was offering me a fair trial. Just don't go believing McGreely's." That's the sheriff, of course. A lot of chapters in this. It almost reads like it might have been made for an anthology like Marvel Comics Presents. And through the whole story, you get not only a sense for what's going on around this area, but also a good, westerny type feel. Everybody, of course, has a little bit of honor with them as well. The bounty hunter. I enjoyed this. I don't know if you're prone to like a western. And again, this is one of those that there's not a real value in it, so you could probably pick it off cheap off the eBays. But for what it is, it's not too bad a story. It's not a memorable one. It's not one that I could see myself rereading. And when I bought this, it was a pricely $3.99. I'm not sure what it's priced now. So I'm kind of giving it, if you can borrow it, fine. But odds are you could probably find this for $1 in a bin somewhere, maybe on the eBays. But it was an enjoyable little read, picking into a genre that I just really haven't done a lot with. Usually the stories are kind of, I don't know, there's a certain weirdness to westerns that are done in the 60s, this one, not having read a lot of Kid Colt, I'm not sure how true to character he is, but if you happen to see it in a bin somewhere, pick it up. Not a bad read.
Every
You know,
so
like
often,
Westerns? Ignore it.
Marvel brings out the Western heroes. Um,
I wonder if
I
it's just to keep the licensing going.
It may be, for the copyright purposes, but another thing is they probably get pitches for them. The last one I really enjoyed was Apache Skies, which was by John Ostrander through Marvel Max, which treated because if you read the Marvel Western heroes of the 50s into the 60s, they were pretty much just superhero books, except their power was they could shoot a gun out of another person's hand. No one ever got shot unless they were going to die. Most of the time, the hero would shoot the gun out of somebody's hand because of the comics code.
Yeah, no, this one definitely not there, because that was something that kind of threw me off, because, I was waiting for that. Oh, he's just wounding. No, these are guys that are looking to get Kid Colt for the bounty, and he doesn't show him any mercy. As a matter of fact, the guy who rides with him, I think his name is Everett Hawkmore, which I don't know if that has any bearing to anything else in the Marvel Universe.
He was Gunhawk.
Okay, but Everett makes a comment about, you seem to be pretty deadly. And he goes, I'm not saying I won't shoot someone that to defend myself or that deserves it. I'm just saying I didn't shoot the original charges against him. Matter of fact, I'm around atomicavenue.com, and I'll just kind of read it. They give kind of a one-sentence synopsis, which might give a little bit better than because I was reading through the book, just kind of rambling. Against a deadly bounty hunter, a corrupt sheriff, and the scavengers of the West, odds are against Blaine Cole, one of Marvel's original Western heroes. He saddles up to ride again as Kid Colt. Joining him is his ally, the steady-shooting Everett Hawkmore. But that's the way they like him. So it's the old frame for murder thing. I don't know if they ever had a resolution for this.
No.
But, this was 2009.
Because if you resolve it, you can't tell any more stories with them.
Yeah.
It's like
you can.
When you watch those Westerns of the 50s and 60s when they show them on My TV or Me TV, like, he's on the run for a crime he didn't commit. Well, if he ever is able to solve the crime and get himself innocent, it's like, okay, that's the end of the series. Good night. Kind of like The Fugitive. Yeah. When he finally catches the one-armed man, that's the end of the series. There were so many series set up like that. And when I was a kid, I always fell for that until I was like, because I would learn how stories were put together. By the time I was 12, I forget what series it was, but one of my sisters says, I think this is the night when the Hulk's able to prove his innocence. And I said, the Hulk will never prove his innocence. He'll always be chased by the reporter, because if he does, there's no more stories to tell. And my dad said, oh, quit it.
Yeah. Of course, that is ignoring the rerun aspect. Because even like Chris and I, we constantly are watching MASH, even though we know the ending of the characters. And it's kind of, you get kind of sad, when you're watching Henry Blake talk about getting home and can't wait to get home with his wife. And, his son is born while he's over in Korea, a son he'll never meet, So there's a little sadness to that. But that's also good writing, because I'm swept up into the characters and things like that. I think that's why I'm kind of giving this kind of a lukewarm response, because I'm not really swept up in the Kid Colt thing. I mean, I know he's a good guy. I know the guys that are traveling with him are good guys, but and it was just a one shot. I waffle between buying one shots because it's fun just to read a modern Marvel Western. There's no shooting out of the hands in this one, so it's more of a deadly sensibility. If you're going to get shot at by Kid Colt, you're probably going to die.
And that was, I believe that was part of a fifth week event.
It could be. I don't have any other reference.
Series of Mighty Marvel Westerns. They did 5 different books.
And there's no house ad or no other references in here to that. Just kind of looking about. So. But if there was, I probably would have bought more than one, Because even now today, when Marvel does their previews, I'm always looking, and they're very specific when it's a one shot. And part of me wants to buy it, and part of me is just like, I'm just going to buy this thing. And I really hate it because, we're always like buy, borrow, or ignore. And this to me is buy it at a quarter or ignore it if you don't like Westerns, or borrow it if somebody's going to borrow it to you. Because I just, it was okay. I don't get exposed to a
Borrow
lot of
can
Westerns.
also be just wait and read it on Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah, that might be a better way to do it. So, and then if there are other Westerns, it's worth checking out as well. So, what you got up next?
The next is a book that's been sitting on my shelf. A lot of these are like you. They've been sitting on my shelf for a while, and I haven't had a chance to read them. This is Green Arrow Year One. And I believe this is pre-52, because with the new 52, they de-aged him and changed all kinds of stuff. But this is Green Arrow Year One, written by Andy Diggle, who's best known for his stuff he did over in England on 2000 AD, where he was an editor. And the artist is Jock, who's probably best known for his run on 100 Bullets. Basically, he stayed at DC. And this is a retelling of the origin of Green Arrow. Now, the origin of Green Arrow was that he was shipwrecked on an island. He had to learn how to shoot a bow and arrow to survive, and came back. And for the longest time in the DC universe, he was basically Batman with a bow and arrow and not as much personality. And what they did when Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil got a hold of him, they took away his fortune and made him kind of your typical 60s loudmouth liberal. Well, what Andy Diggle does in this story is kind of explain who he was and why he became Green Arrow in kind of the modern era. He's kind of a rich, he's a billionaire who kind of inherited his money. His business runs on its own. He's a ne'er-do-well, and he really doesn't much care about being rich, except he loves all the perks. And we find out that it's not that he got shipwrecked on an island because his boat sank. He gets shipwrecked on an island because he's being scammed by his bodyguard. His bodyguard tries to kill him. He goes overboard, washes up on an island, and he had learned how to shoot a bow and arrow because he liked the old action movies, and he hired the person who taught actors how to shoot a bow and arrow. So as he's on this island, he learns to survive with his bow and arrow, but he finds out that the island itself has a very dark secret. This was a miniseries. It's then been collected into a trade paperback. I don't think it's in continuity anymore, but it's a shame because it takes a character who's really, for the most part, under most creators, paper thin. Green Arrow has only a few times has been interesting. He was interesting in the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams stuff. He was interesting when Mike Grell had him as the middle-aged superhero who's feeling the weight of the years. And the rest of the time, it's just, okay, he's a guy with a bow and arrow. This gives him a reason to fight crime, a reason why he used his wealth the way he did, and why him losing it mattered. And it gave him backstory that fit. There are times when you try to latch on a backstory to a paper-thin character and it doesn't work. But Andy Diggle was able to really kind of dig in using real-world events in a way that didn't feel like he's turning it grim and gritty. It was more, okay, we need to give him a reason why he fights crime. We need to give him a reason why he puts on this costume and puts his life in danger. And the story does that. Jock does a beautiful job on this. Normally, I find his art a little off-putting. I always had a trouble with the distortions he used in 100 Bullets, but here he does it really well. He only uses the distortions at times when the Oliver Queen character's perception is twisted, like when he's drunk or when he's delirious from hunger or lack of water, things like that. He uses that twisted perception there, but the rest of the time his stuff is really straightforward and well put together. The other thing I have with some modern comics is you can pick up a trade paperback and read it in about 20-25 minutes. This one, you savor, you take your time, because Jock is an artist who knows how to move you through an action sequence or to slow down for a personal sequence. Andy Diggle, who has so much experience as an editor, is also really good at giving the information you need without giving too much or too little, so that it pulls you through the story, so that when there are revelations, it's not given away too soon, or wow, that came completely out of nowhere, but more, oh, okay, these lines all connect together to this now. I imagine this trade paperback is still available at your local comic shop, because most of the trade paperbacks, once the New 52 hit, it's like, oh, all the stuff before New 52 don't really sell that well. And then New 52 hit, and then once Rebirth hit, oh, look at all these New 52 trade paperbacks we have that we can't sell. But this is one to go back. It's still available on Amazon. It's still available at most of the online retailers. Your shop should probably have a copy, and if not, they'd be able to get one. It may be out of print, but it's not rare. And this one I give a buy. Joe.
Ooh. All right. The next one up is called, well, I'm not going to tell you what it's called, because I have a question for you, Cory.
Okay.
If you think of the origin of most heroes, what do you think is the number one thing that is in common with a lot of them?
They have to give some reason how they got their powers.
And what do you think is the number one reason?
Oh, radiation.
No.
Well, at Marvel it was.
Well, no.
Even all of the mutants, their parents were subjected.
If you
read the early X-Men, it's, you
Professor
said the right X's parents worked in on the nuclear bomb sort of thing.
You said the right word, parents.
Oh.
Number one thing that seems to really get them going, their parents are dead.
Just like
they recon a lot of it. I mean, now Superman parents were alive or are alive, but originally his parents, at least both his adopted parents and the Kryptonian parents were dead. The Batman, his parents were dead. So many. I mean, with Spider-Man,
parents are dead.
Oh, they were killed, and even Uncle Ben was killed, and
Uncle Ben is dead.
Yeah, well, as Rice is, certainly, but
spoilers.
Yeah, it just seemed so many heroes. Well, you know what happened? You can almost tell by the title of the book. It's a one-shot from Image, all the way back from 2008, with Mark Andrew Smith writing it and Marcelo Di Chiara drawing it. Kill all parents. Essentially, a super secret, smart, superiorist scientist figures out that all the doom and gloom is coming, and in order to prevent that from happening, he needs to get these heroes in line to be heroic. And how does he do that? Well, he just figures you kill their parents. That gets them so moody and gloomy that they're out being noble. But as you know, as all good super secret sneaky top scientists discover, eventually your plans will be unfoiled. And what do you think will happen when you take the archetype of Batman, Superman, Spider-Man et al. And when they discover that, yeah, you know what? Here's the answers to everything you've wondered about ever since you were all children. What do you think happens? Well, in this one shot, you will find out. And it's really kind of a weird one. I don't even recall why I bought this, because it's just a one shot. I'm not sure if these guys have done anything else other than this. It's not tremendously expensive. You should be able to find it in a dollar bin everywhere. But it's kind of a funny, ironic decomposition of the mythos that is behind at least a lot of the original heroes. And it's almost like when you talk about Disney and his films, the parents die in almost every single one. Bambi's ma gets nailed. Cinderella's with step parents. Snow White's an orphan. Disney didn't like parents. Well, a lot of superhero guys, they didn't like their parents either. And, I think John Byrne even brought that up when he redid Superman in the 86, where he was like, the origin is too much like Batman. The parents are dead and the step parents are dead. The parents are alive in this one. Well, at least they were for a while. I think they killed them. I don't even know if they're alive now. It shows you how little I'm paying attention. But in this particular one shot, it's a very interesting run where, you're almost like, do you agree with the mad scientists for what they did? Or do you agree with the guy who revealed it? Mark Andrew Smith, of course, he's done The Amazing Joy Buzzards, Aqualung, a New Brighton and Archaeological Society, Gladstone School for World Conquerors, Marcelo Chiara. He's done other stuff, a lot of stuff in Pop Gun, the series anthology that Image did. And that could be why they did this series, allowed these guys to do a one-shot. Chiara's also worked as a miniseries with Marvel, Iron Man and Power Pack, if you've ever read that, which I haven't. I don't know if I have it in my thing or not. So one of those, I don't know what you want to call it. What would you call it, Cory? Like Watchmen, kind of a different take on the superhero myths that we just kind of suck up and believe. What if
they call it deconstruction?
Yeah. What if maybe it wasn't that Superman had to leave as a child from Krypton? What if Krypton didn't explode? What if that wasn't an actual? Of course, with Batman they keep changing it, but what if it wasn't a actual crook that shot his parents? What if they did it on purpose? What if Uncle Ben
one of my favorite internet jokes is, Batman, Alfred, this tuna fish sandwich is terrible. I don't like it when people dislike my food. Oh, what did you do to the last people who didn't like your tuna sandwiches? I hired a junkie to kill them in the alley behind a movie theater.
So, yeah, it's a fun little series. Go hunt it down. Like I said, they're $1 here and there, and especially if you're a superhero fan, it kind of gives you a little. I mean, I haven't been this since I discovered Batman and Superman's parents were both named Martha.
Ugh.
Wasn't that Spider-Man? Never mind. Cory, what you got coming up next?
The next book I have is a book that we actually talked about a while back, X-Men Legends #1.
Ooh.
X-Men Legends #1 is written by Fabian Nicieza, drawn by Brett Booth, both of whom worked on the X-Men back in the 90s. X-Men Legends is they are getting together classic X-Men teams, or, a writer who used to work on the X-Men series of books in the past, and have them do one more story. Now, the gimmick of this story is that it's set in the 90s, and it was Fabian Niceza's answer to who was the third Summers brother. Here's the thing. Joe, you've gone back and tried to read the X-Men books in the 90s.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Exactly. They're poorly laid out. I remember at the time, most artists would say they're just drawing, each page looked like a poster and was, terrible at telling the story. And the reason for that was that all of a sudden, if you worked on the X-Men selling your original art, you could sell your original art pages for hundreds of dollars. And if you want more about that, listen to our next episode, number 400, where Joe tells stories about he and Pat Gruber buying X-Men pages. But it also made it where the stories were nearly impossible to read. You couldn't tell where you were supposed to look next. It would usually be focused on one big character and then some side panels, and you wouldn't know the flow. Well, Brett Booth does not do that in this.
What?
He uses the same sort of scratchy Jim Lee-ish style, but he uses modern storytelling techniques. And I got to tell you something, Joe. If he would have done that back in the 90s, I would have absolutely loved his work, because this art in this book is phenomenal. It shows me that my problem with a lot of those that imagey style of work, and Joe will back me up, I said it at the time, you couldn't tell what was going on in any of the stories. And my feeling is, if you can't tell a story, you're not a good artist. His figure drawing is well done. It's, super over exaggerated, because that's what it was supposed to be back then. It's all of the X-Men 90s costumes and all of their pouched and silly glory, but it's a well-told story. The inking is different from what it was in the 90s, in that it's not that super fine line scratchy inking. It has a little more room to grow, because it's pretty clear that this was done digitally. So the art actually comes off much better. Fabian Nicieza, who's been writing comics now for 30 years, does a much better job in this of introducing characters, introducing conflicts, giving you background as part of the story. Yes, there is a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of text. But it's not like in the past where there would be huge blocks of text. He instead uses the text blocks to set the scene. Here's the scene. Or there's editorial captions, which people don't use anymore. Believe it or not. I don't think there are any thought balloons, which is, kind of a shame, because I'm one of the few people on this planet who miss thought balloons, because the thought balloon was kind of where you would have your secondary story and your characterization taking place. It also could replace a lot of the editorial captioning. But the story itself, you don't need to know all the ins and outs of what was going on in the X-Men in the 90s, because I certainly did not know. And by the end of this issue, I knew who the characters were. I knew what the stakes were. I knew what the backgrounds were. And it really impresses upon me that the problem in the 90s with the X-Men wasn't that it was too convoluted. It's that the people who were working on it didn't know how to tell stories, and they didn't have an editor who helped them learn that. They've learned it over time by working with other editors and other creators in other companies. And this may be one of my favorite 90s X-Men stories. And it gave me kind of this weird nostalgic glow that this series is supposed to give. It's a 3-issue story. The first issue sets up a great cliffhanger. I am giving it a buy.
I think one of the other things, too, in the 90s is that a lot of the artists, because of the image thing, they were thinking in terms of selling their art secondary. So, yeah, make a big, convoluted multi-cross hatch art, and then, when they got it back between mixing it, I think they split it between the writer and the artist, at least Marvel did. They could get it on the secondary market and sell it, because that was always a big deal. Although it makes a lot of it, even some of the later stuff, like the early run of JLA with Morrison, the art just makes me cringe, because I'm not. I'm not. It's a great story.
I did not like Howard Porter's art at the style. I thought that he broke the characters down into kind of geometric shapes rather than having them as figure drawings. which is a weird thing to say, but once you look at it, you'll go, oh yeah, that's what he meant. It was like their arms were drawn, and then the chest was drawn, and then the legs were drawn, but there really wasn't ever a time when it's like, no, he drew a whole figure. But no, again, if this is how comics were done in the 90s, I think I would have liked the X-Men a whole lot better.
Yeah.
Joe?
All right. How many have we done so far? 1, 2, 3. 3?
Let's see. We're up to 55 minutes, so why don't we each do one more?
All right. So for me, I picked a couple spare issues of Spider-Man's Tangled Web.
Oh, I love that series so much.
Yeah, I have various ones. I've never had the full thing, and I think I might have missed out because there are several. I know there's a lot of different ones. Here's what they basically went to people that just don't normally do Spider-Man and had them do a Spider-Man story. The 3 random issues I had, the first one was number 13, Double Shots. And let me get to the creator page. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see. It is Ron Zimmerman writing, Sean Phillips drawing. And basically this one is just, it kind of takes place in a bar, deals a lot with just a night in, what's the name of the bar that the heroes go to all the time? I can't remember, but it's just them. They're sitting around, they're telling stories, they're comparing notes, they're getting on each other's case. There's great lines like, all right, you wouldn't go out with the Black Widow, huh? No, redheads can be very crazy and difficult to deal with.
Who's saying that?
I don't know. It's just somebody with a hat and a mysterious face.
Oh, it might be Wolverine.
The Vulture is in it.
Oh, you mean the
Tombstone.
Villains Bar?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
The bar with no name. I thought you meant the Heroes Bar.
Yeah, no. This is I'm sorry, the Villains Bar. That makes it totally different because I'm just kind of flipping through it. So this is just fun. I don't want to reveal who the guy who's talking about the redheads is because that's kind of the twist story. But we've seen this before. Batman Animated had a great show where they're all sitting around talking about, we killed the Batman. But this is just a fun little thing, that they go to the bar. What is it? What'd you say? Bar with no name?
Yep, the bar with no name.
We revisit the bar with no name when we get to issue number 19, which is another. This is Robbie Morrison writing it and Jim Manfood. I'm sorry. You probably remember him from his own series. Yeah, he did Clerks, and he had I think it was No Mercy or something. I forget. I can, and just real stylish art. This is basically why can't I think of his name? He's in a bear costume all the time.
Grizzly.
Was he named Bear? Grizzly. Yeah, he gets released from jail finally, and he's just going to go straight and have a nice quiet life. Unfortunately, next door to him is the Rhino. And although Rhino's kind of like, hey, cool, someone I can pal with, Grizzly's like, no, I got to stay away from you because you'll violate my parole. I don't want to get back in a slammer. I'm trying to go straight. And he goes, well, I was only being friendly. No, got to inconspicuous. Right. Now, the funny thing is that Bear only has one piece of clothing with him, Grizzly, and that's the bear outfit. And as you might figure out as the story goes on, guess who Grizzly keeps running into? Come on. Yeah,
it would have to be Spider-Man, wouldn't it?
No, well, eventually he'll make a show. It's his book. But no matter what he does, no matter where he turns, he keeps running into the Rhino. Keeps running into, it's like he shows up at Juicy Lucy's. He says, I want a steak. Give me a T-bone. Sorry, buddy. Your buddy down there just ordered up all the steaks in the freezer. Who's the buddy? The Rhino. Here, all that's left, prawn cocktail. Manage your anger. So he goes to the Helping Hand Fertilization Clinic because he's got to get money somehow. And, the problem is Rhino has a tough time when he's, helping giving a sample. So, but he's like, Mr. Rhino, your cubicle's ready for you now, sir. Mr. Grizzly, I'm sorry, but we've been extremely busy. Would you mind using the same cubicle as Mr. Rhino? After he's finished, of course. And Rhino just, put your feet up, Yogi. This might take a while. Manage your anger, manage your anger. And eventually, of course, they fight, or do they? And Spider-Man gets in the way, and do they? So just kind of a goofy little slice of life type fun thing. I love Manfred's art, so it was fun. The last one I read, and believe me, I got quite a few, was issue number 22. Brian Patrick Walsh wrote it. Alberto Dos drew it. And again, another done in one where it's kind of a guy is just yeah, it's just kind of a like a cop on the beat, you know, dealing with the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You don't actually see Spider-Man in it, but it's kind of like how it affects not only the people that are busted, the people that are arrested, and you kind of follow along with the story while this guy gets kind of leaned on, you know, and it starts out with him hanging from Spider-Man's web. But it's just kind of watching him go through the system when, you know, you got people that want him quiet, you got people that want him loud, you got people that want him to just, you know, come to work for him, people that don't want to, and, you know, he just wants to go through the system and just be released. And again, that's kind of a fun ending because every time Spider-Man busts this guy, he sends the mob boss a picture with courtesy of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and just kind of an interesting take of what happens when Spider-Man webs up a guy and just leaves him behind. The cops know he did something bad, but can you really finger him for that, especially in the in the society we have? There's a couple more that I read. Tangled Web 21 was done by Darwin Cook, which was the fight before Christmas. Apparently, Peter goes out with other gals other than Mary Jane, sort of, kind of, maybe. And then there was number 14, which was, as I wait for it to load here, written by Brian Azzarello, Scott Levy, with Giuseppe Calmucoli doing the art. Championship Wrestling Olympic Arena this Friday, one night only. Meet with Crusher Hogan. Now, if you're a Spider-Man fan, that's really all I need to say. So you know what this one's already about. These were just delightful series. It only went to 22 issues. Not a lot of them are super expensive. There's a number of books out. There's a deluxe omnibus, I think.
Yes.
If you can find it. Good luck finding it.
I have it. So I can find it over there in the box with the T.
I probably should look because I don't have mine autographed or alphabetized or even open in some cases. But, and of course, if that's not enough, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 issues have, first 4 have Garth Ennis and John McCrea doing the 1,000. There is an interesting variation with number 1. When they first published the number 1, it was misprinted. It came on just normal comic book. It's all on glossy paper. So the rest that's how they wanted this. They wanted this a little bit better, a little bit higher caliber. So if you could have that first issue, I've seen it go as high as $50. I don't think it's going that high now because basically you're supposed to pulp and get rid of them. I think what I did is I just put mine in a pile somewhere. I never recalled them. Basically when I got the new issue with the proper printing, I would just make sure everybody who ordered number 1 got that issue free because you've already paid for the number 1, and this is a free replacement copy courtesy of Marvel. I didn't know years later they would become expensive, and I ended up with like 5, and I've blown a few out on the eBays. I might have 1 or 2 left. I don't know. You can go look. Just to drop some other names: Greg Rucka, Peter Milligan, Bruce Jones, Lee Weeks. I already mentioned Darwin Cook, Paul Pope, which gave the first appearance of Stag Beetle, by the way. And there's a couple in here that were actually some heart tuggers. But I definitely recommend the whole series, Tangled Webs. You can pick them up one-on-one, pick up the books, or find the omnibus. So you got different versions. And I'd imagine, too, as Cory is want to mention, they are probably on Marvel Unlimited. So if you're tied into that, check them out. Just a lot of fun. I don't know why I have just random issues. Probably because I just pulled them out of bins or, let's see, when was this thing published? 2001 to 2003. Sort of been like the tail end of my comic shop before Crazy Comics. So I probably just picked these up as I saw it on the shelf, like, oh, this is interesting, or I like Darwin Cook, that type of thing. Cory, what you got for our last one?
The last one is I read the 2 trade paperbacks of what year was this? The most recent attempt to bring back the Exiles. This was a 12-issue series in 2 trade paperbacks written by Saladin Ahmed, who I loved his stuff on Black Bolt, love his stuff on Ms. Marvel, and Ultimate Spider-Man, drawn by a number of people, but mostly by Rod Reis. It was a 12-issue series that brings the idea of the Exiles back. The Exiles was a group of mutants from different universes who were brought together by a device called the Talus that takes them to a universe that is in danger and has something that needs to be fixed. So they would go to different alternate universes. It was kind of a way for Marvel to keep using the what if concept after What If had canceled, but also turn it into a continuing story, because one of the problems with What If was because it's not a continuing story and doesn't tie into the regular Marvel universe, people tend to not read books like that. The team that was brought together for this is Blink from the Age of Apocalypse universe, who was the main character in the original run. Iron Lad, which is a version of Iron Man who would grow up to become Kang. Valkyrie, in a universe where Thor was killed and she became Earth's protector. And Wolvie, who is one of the X-Kids, where their adventures are, basically, kids playing and eating cake and things like that. And I had a lot of problems with this book. A lot of problems. First, they bring in Wolvie, who's, a little kid character and has never seen anybody really hurt or die. So if you're going to bring a character like that in, you need to have that character go through some changes. But for the most part, Wolvie doesn't seem to be a part of the stories. He's always gone when the fights are going on or when the serious stuff is happening, and he's used as kind of comic relief. Iron Lad is interesting in that he does worry a lot about becoming Kang. Valkyrie is a fun representation of the character. Blink is a well-done continuation of the character, because at the end of the original Exile series, she's done and she gets to live on a world where everything's fine. And she gets drawn out of that world and has to accept the responsibility again. The problem is that they have them against against villains that are so powerful that it doesn't work for me. There's one thing where your hero has to fight from underneath, but the first villain they are dealing with is a disembodied Galactus head, which is able to devour entire universes. And of course, the way they defeat the villain is a Deus Ex Machina. The characters themselves really don't make the change. It's other events around them. They're then fighting against a group of rogue watchers, which also are incredibly too powerful for them to defeat. And because they keep using that as the story hook, that these characters are way too powerful for them to defeat, and all they're able to do is kind of run out the clock until somebody comes and saves their bacon, you really don't get hooked into the stories. The art is well done. The characterization is okay, But for the most part, the characters just feel like they're there watching the story rather than taking part in it. They also bring in the what do they call him? The nameless one or the all-seeing one? The character that Nick Fury became at the end of Original Sin. And do nothing.
Well, that's weird because I thought he was tethered to the moon permanently.
He is. And they keep showing up, and they have that character as kind of a narrator, announcer, overseer type character, and do nothing with it. Absolutely nothing with it. The whole thing feels like kind of a wasted effort in that he had these huge stories he wanted to tell, and he's having to cram these characters into them rather than having the stories come out of the characters. And the what if universes get destroyed immediately because the evil Galactus head shows up and just wipes it out.
Did they do that in Zardoz?
They did it in Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Oh, okay.
Except it was
damn evil, all-powerful heads.
It's this weird thing where it's a well-told story that I don't like because the story mechanics don't work. The characters aren't driving the story. The characters are almost incidental to the story. It's almost as if they're spending their time going, look at that going on over there that we have nothing to do, that we can't influence at all. So because of that, I think that's the reason why it only lasted 12 issues, because the first 5 issues, they're up against a universe destroying thing and they say it gets more powerful every universe it destroys, and we see it destroy tons of universes, and these characters aren't at that power level. They don't bring in anyone at that power level, and if your characters aren't the reason why the story is being sent forward, and your characters aren't the ones who are providing the resolution, the reader is going to come away feeling disappointed. And that was my whole thing with this, that every story I came out of it feeling disappointed. It's 2 trade paperbacks. It's available on Marvel Unlimited. This gets a low borrow. Read it on Marvel Unlimited or borrow the books from the library if you're interested in the Exiles or if you like Rod Reis's art. But this was a big misstep on Marvel's part. You know who never makes a misstep, Joe?
Oh, is those kids on the corner while it's 40 above selling lemonade from their lemonade stand?
No, but they're pretty smart. It's these guys, our sponsors. And this isn't the only podcast I do. I do all of these. And this isn't the only way.
Podcasting machine.
And this isn't the only way Joe wastes his Sundays. He does it by going out on the eBays.
I do. And I've been doing lots. For some reason, I've been kicked into overdrive and just finding all sorts of fun stuff for you on the eBays. First, I like to just, kind of boast a little bit because I've sold a few things, of course. And just like, every weekend, I go into the weekend, everything's shipped, everything's ready to go. Just even as we were talking, some guy came in, bought Brave and Bold number 120 from 1975, Batman and Commandy. Sold Incredible Hulk 393, which was the 1992 foil cover book. Power Shazam number 44 from 1998. Winter Soldier, Winter Kills, which I believe was a one-shot that tied into Captain America in 2007. The Angela, Queen of Hell, Journey into Thunderworld graphic novel, which tied into the whole Thor run in 2016. Sold a complete set of Shades of Blue. This was a book published by AMP, and according to AtomicAvenue.com, most teenage girls go through changes, but not everyone goes through the kind of changes Heidi Page did, waking up one morning to find her hair blue and the ability to control electricity at her fingertips. In body, if not in mind, she's suddenly a superhero, and her best friend encourages her to use her new powers. She has to, otherwise the homecoming dance will be ruined. Seems she's not the only one with strange new powers, as her classmate Jack has some too. He's not guided by the same moral code as Heidi is. So this was a, 10-issue series, and then another 5-issue series from Digital 2003, starting about 1999. Some other fun things sold: a Fraggle Rock Journey into Everspring #1 that actually has Jim Henson on the cover. Cory, remember them goofy lenticular variant covers that Marvel did in 2017?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sold one. Cable 150, only at $5.94, but it's sold. X-Files 1/2 Tops Wizard mail away. That's where when you got your Tops magazine, you'd pull the coupon out, mail it away, and then they'd mail you either 1/2. Sometimes I got a gold issue because I'd order so many through Wizards. It was just all sorts of X-File 1/2s. Not a lot of them are expensive. Speaking of giveaway, I actually had a Vampirella Wizard Chrome trading card from '97 that I ended up selling. DC Comics Presents number 36, which had Superman and Starman versus Mongol. Book of the Damned 2. This is Clive Barker's book all the way from 1991. And this basically just was the kind of an epic series that dealt with other stuff in the whole Pinhead, Hellraiser universe. I think I said Hellblazer. No, it's Hellraiser. And the finale was Young Justice number 15 variant cover, even though it was just canceled. For some reason, I got two. I got a variant cover, or I kept the regular cover. But I keep talking about putting things on eBay. I actually hit a lot of stuff since we were together last. I put a whole run of Lady Death Kickstarter editions on because I have duplicates and triplicates of it. A lot of different books, including a couple runs from FemForce, some low-grade Archies and Marvels, Amazing Adventure 29, Strange Tales 177, Knight Rider 1. Found some other variant covers, some newer stuff. Imagine some of the things I talked about I might actually throw on eBays. But I actually found some of the things non-comic book related. We're talking like Matchbox cars from the 70s that came in the actual box. I found a penguin on top of your telly, the live but dead parrot. Yeah, these are from, these were exclusively offered through Diamond via Toy Vault. So you could only order them through Diamond Comics. So they didn't get a lot of distribution, and there's not a lot of them out there. Remember Death Row Marv from Todd McFarlane Toys, Cory?
Yes, which was from Sin City.
Yep. I actually have the one I used in my comic shop as a demo because I opened it up and it still makes noise. I put some batteries in it, it lights up, and it just laughs and says, "That all you got, you pansies." A couple other vehicles. I found remember those little green army men? I have one of those army trucks that they used to ride around in. A Corgi Jr. from a show called The Saint, if you remember that. Probably should.
Oh, yes.
Yep. A couple Tonkas, the little yellow carrier trucks, and something from the 60s, a really weird electric cable car. I think I picked this up when I went to an alleged Comic-Con up in Forest Lake a number of years ago. And I got there weren't many comic people there. I think, I can't remember his name, from Oak Leaf Comics was there. And basically, I'm just slowly going through, not only comics, I got a whole batch of new stuff that I'm going to scan and get on there. Best way to do is to just jump online, check out the Crazy, Krayz. If you see something you like, well, like this guy here, he just sent me an offer. He for a Corgi Jr. number 10. Corgi Jr., of course, was a Matchbox size thing. They usually came in blister packs, and occasionally you get them in boxes. They surface now and then. Mostly they're British cars, but this one had a Revell sticker on the side that I don't know much about it. I priced it cheap. This guy made an offer. I find it reasonable. I'm going to accept it, just like that. So don't go looking for it because it's sold. Everything else you can go look for. You know the drill. Krayz on the eBays. And like I say every week, come get some.
And now we get to my favorite. And now we get to my favorite part of the show.
Reruns.
No, not where I load up on day after Valentine's Day candy and go into a sugar coma.
Sugar coma.
No, it's Freaking and Geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
Cory, are you going to buy True Believers, The Rise and Fall of Stan Lee by Abram Reisman?
The stuff I have read, probably not. I was thinking that I might because Roy Thomas says he was interviewed for it, but the reviews are pretty... Now, I will say this. The guy who did it did some really good digging. Mark Evanier actually wrote something about it. There's all this stuff going on Facebook because of this book, and there was a story in the New York Herald Tribune back in the 60s that is kind of pointed to as when Ditko and Kirby lost their love of working there, where Stan was held up on a pedestal and they were kind of, they're just art robots. Mark Evanier has said for years he suspected that the guy who wrote it was angling for a job at Marvel, and the person who wrote that book interviewed that newspaper writer, and the newspaper writer said flat out, I wrote that so that Stan would think good of me, and I applied for a job at Marvel, and he didn't hire me. So Evanier was right that whole thing, that newspaper article that pissed off so many of the people who worked at Marvel, was basically some guy trying to get a job there.
I'm just really tired of the whole Stan did everything, Stan did nothing, Kirby did everything, Ditko was God. We've talked about it before, and my take on it is always, the work these men did together is better than the stuff they did apart. But I'm real tired of, I think that, I don't know what we want to call them, Kirbyites, because they are so...
On Kirby groups, they're called the Kirby Commandos or Kirby Fanatics.
I'll call them Kirbtards, because they are just so anti-Stan, and basically it makes it depressing to read. And of course, now with this book coming out, and I've been waiting to hear the reviews. I know we talked about, we wanted to see what Roy Thomas said. I may pick this up in the remainder bin somewhere. Or wait till a used copy shows up. I mean, I can't tell you how many used copies of books I have lying around. It's real negative on Stan, because I think this guy just, I think Evanier says that even if he has some shred of evidence that would be positive for Stan, he ignores it because he wants to make it all about negative Stan. Is he wrong? Probably not. But what's worse than being human? We've got good things, we've got bad things. If someone were to just consequently want to just deal with everything negative you did in your life, you're going to sound bad. And I don't believe we need a book like this. Except, of course, if you hate Stanley, so those guys are going to, be just having fun with it. All I can tell you, there's 2 quotes I'll give you when you're dealing with this, whether you are, I think Cory and I are kind of middle of the road guys. We see it for ourselves. There are people that are, oh no, Stan is great. Stan is God. Other people like Kirby, Ditko, 100% right. Stan was nothing but a hound dog. Nobody ever mentions Martin Goodman, though. Anyways, the first one is from our good friend Harlan Ellison. You are not entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to your informed opinion. No one is entitled to be ignorant. Seriously, if you're one side or the other, you're ignorant. And the second one is from Londo from Babylon 5. Arrogance and stupidity, all in one package. How efficient of you. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Can I jump in and...
Please. Because we got a good discussion going on this one.
With Facebook, I have been able to talk to tons of. Okay, my computer just wanted to talk to me for a minute.
Oh, okay.
In talking with a lot of people who worked at Marvel in the 70s and reading tons of stuff, Stan was probably the best editor ever in comics, period. If you look at the people who worked at Timely Atlas and on into Marvel, he got the best work out of people. There are a lot of people who, well, I didn't like Kirby, but man, I like that stuff in the 60s. Or Ditko, same thing. Or Gene Colan, same thing. He got people to do their best work. People who talk about whether Stan was, what Stan wrote, what he didn't write, what this, that, the other, they don't know how comics worked back then. And I'll use the EC example, and I'll also use examples of Mort Weisinger. If you were a, quote, writer, unquote, you would come in and you would pitch ideas. And the editor would pitch ideas back to you, and they would decide on what you were going to write. Or, in the case of EC, Al Feldstein would have this big old stack of 6x9 index cards that he and the publisher, William Gaines, had batted around ideas for. And if Feldstein himself didn't write it, if somebody else wrote it, he would give the guy the, here you go, here's your idea. They would bring it back. Feldstein would lay it out, give it to the artist. Mort Weisinger, you would come in and pitch ideas, and he'd go, no, bullshit, no. And he would hand you an idea that some other writer had come in and pitched, because Mort Weisinger wanted to make sure you were under his control. Julie Schwartz, you'd sit down and bat around ideas. Julie Schwartz would say, we got this cover coming in of Superman versus the Abominable Snowman. What do you got for me? Or we want to do a story about this. What do you got for me? Stan did that as well, except here's the thing. Mark Goodman was too fucking cheap to let Stan hire other writers. At times, Stan could have his brother do some scripting. He could have another writer, Robert Burns. Or if you look at the real early Marvel stuff, you'd see R. Burns listed as scripter. They would do the scripting. But you would come in, Stan would give you your assignment. If he trusted you, it would be a simple one, like, let's have the Fantastic Four fight Dr. Doom again. If he didn't know you that well, he'd give you like a 4 to 7 page story outline. Here you go, do this. When it came back in, it wasn't that he would just do dialogue. He would work with the art corrections people to change things, to move things around. He would change the story with the dialogue. One of the things that Kirby got really furious about, the story that gave us Warlock, the Secret of the Beehive. Stan completely changed Kirby's story with the dialogue and the captions. That was how it was done back then. It wasn't done where, okay, I'm turning in the script, the artist will draw it, and no. We had Scott Lodell at the comic shop, and Joe has told that story 100 times. But one of the things that always strikes me about it is there was some kid who said, well, what's coming up in the X-Men? And Lodell, who was, was near the end of the day, he was like, I don't know, kid, the editor plots it. That's how it was. It's never clear. It's not cut and dry. When Kirby was mad, he created everything. Stan, when he talks to reporters like the story of Stan creates everything, because they have one man who they could go, well, he worked for the company, and he was also the editor, and he was also the writer. Stan stepped away from writing comics in 1972.
And they ignore all the interviews where he says, I co-created.
They ignore the time when he was on Larry King, and when Larry King said, when you created this stuff, and Stan broke in and said, no, Jack Kirby created these characters. Steve Ditko created these characters. And if you ever want to see how messy it is, read Will Murray's stuff on the web about the creation of Spider-Man, where Stan had an idea for a character named Spider-Man because he remembered the pulp character Spider, Master of Men. So he told the artist, hey, I'm going to do a character called Spider-Man. Jack Kirby grabbed an old character that he and Joe Simon had put together that was kind of a riff on Captain Marvel, where the guy had a ring, and when he would put on the ring, he would become the Spider-Man, and he would have certain powers, and Stan didn't like it. So he tried a couple other things, and finally he went, no. And he was working with Ditko on Amazing Adult Fantasy, and they were doing twist ending stories. So he said, well, why don't we do a twist ending story for Spider-Man? Get it out of my system, and it'll be the main feature in Amazing Fantasy, and then we'll have more backup stories. And if you read the first 2 issues of Spider-Man, you'll see that basically it was, well, you've read the first issue of Spider-Man where it's 2 stories. Well, that was going to be Amazing Fantasy 16 and Amazing Fantasy 17, issue 2, which was also 2 stories, 18 and 19. Amazing Fantasy got canceled. He repurposed them into Spider-Man 1 and 2. Ditko took the idea, changed it up. Lee changed stuff about it. The story was written. They gave Kirby the character design. He drew the cover. Boom. Who created Spider-Man? Was it Joe Simon and Jack Kirby? Was it Stan Lee? Was it Ditko? Was it Ditko and Lee? It was all of them. That's how it was done back then. It's like when I am at my job and I'm creating a spreadsheet. Did I create the spreadsheet? Well, I wouldn't have created it if my boss didn't tell me to do this, and my boss needs it for this. So who created the spreadsheet? The company. It's not like now where you bring a character to DC and go, all right, I have this new villain for Batman. Let's use it. Oh, okay, well, you created it, and this person created the look. Half the characters at Marvel, the writer said this, John Romita drew a character design, and it went forward from there. People think it's like with like with movies, where it's, well, I wrote this character. And it's more like you're working at an office where it's, okay, we need a new romance book. So there you go. Have I successfully horned in on your freaking, Joe?
Well, I've just freaked that there's still people that are in one camp or the other. It just doesn't make sense to me. It just not make sense. It makes me think this is Chewbacca. He is a Wookiee. There is no reason for him to be on Endor. Enough. I had another fun health, scare, whatever. Thursday night at work, I talked so much because, a lot of the job is when I'm at the airport, I'm in what they call the DO position, right before the X-ray, where I'm trying to remind you, yes, water is a liquid. Take it out of your bag, because the X-ray guy wants to look at it. Why? Well, because 2006 or so, there was that liquid bomb plot, and we're kind of paranoid about liquids. Yes, you should take your shoes off. Why? Well, because we had a guy who tried to make a shoe bomb, got the explosives on the plane, and if it wasn't for the fact he wore the shoes for 2-3 days beforehand and totally soaked them with his sweat, we might be one less plane. Be thankful we don't make you take your underwear off, because we do have the underwear bomber. All these guys are in Supermax prisons right now, so the less said about them, the better. I also work in tickets, which is not only now do we check IDs with boarding passes, we always have to remind a few stupids, you have to wear a mask to go beyond me. You do not have a choice. A, MAC will not let you in the airport, and B, they will not let you on the plane. The solution, here is a free mask I will give you. Put it on your face, then you can walk past me. Everybody's like, oh, TSA will give fines and suspend. There will be fines. There will be suspensions. No, that's if I have to escalate it to a cop. They're the ones who give you fine and suspension. So if you're going to travel, and folks, I'm worried because I'm high risk, and you just need some chucklehead who's like, I don't have COVID. Even if I do, no one's going to care. He's going to come coughing through the airport. And that's how I figure I'm going to catch it. So by Thursday night, I had not only lost my voice, but Friday morning I woke up and I had sore throat, feel like shit, I'm fatigued, my head hurts. Fudge. So I went downtown to get a COVID test. I got a COVID test. Fortunately, mid-Saturday, they sent it to me, so they can send them really quick. It was negative. I pretty much have a run-of-the-mill cold. By that time, though, I had my voice back. I called the boss. I said, hey, my COVID test was negative. What? I didn't know you were going in. I said, well, I tried to mention it Thursday, but my voice was so gone you probably didn't hear me. So that was kind of my fun weekend. Unfortunately, it burned up all my sick time. As you know, I've been having a run on sick time ever. Good Lord, like last year. Okay, I started off with Hip Watch 2, burned all my sick time. Then in June, I burned 2 weeks when Chris had COVID. And then again, was it August or September? I had to do it again because the kids got exposed. And then, of course, I had pneumonia in November. So instead of getting paid sick time for COVID, I had to use my own sick time. And then I had the 2-week bout where my arthritis was out of control. Ugh. And then on top of that, I still haven't gotten anybody at TSA to process my healthcare request. I swear, Cory, I know you do this job, but whoever, you need to go to the government and do it because they got these assholes hiding behind their emails. They don't get forwarded calls. They don't get mail. They are hiding behind their emails. So whatever they're doing, they're sitting at home if they're on their emails, because I've sent over a dozen to the email address. Nobody replies. And it's just outrageous. Your tax dollars at work, people. Only the best for us. So I'm a little pissed about that. There was one casualty with the cold. I went out to see my truck after a couple days off, and the tire was flat. The right driver's side tire. I went to go get a fix-a-flat, which, by the way, you should probably not use a fix-a-flat can, because if you do, they cannot fix your tire. It gums it up really bad. They would have to replace it. Well, I'm figuring to replace it anyways. Can didn't work. You know, you set it, you shake it up, 30 seconds, you set it down, you press a button, and it kind of went, there was absolutely no pressure in it. $15 fucking can didn't do a goddamn thing. I hate it when I follow the directions and it doesn't work. So I kicked that thing into another yard. It's covered with snow now, so I'm not too worried about it. Eventually, AAA, after 2 days, came out, filled the tire. I drove it to Discount Tire, which are great because they checked the tire out, said no problem. I don't know if they filled it because it's a little flat on the bottom, and of course now because of the cold, none of the gas stations have their air out. So I still, it's a little under inflated, but I just gotta drive it somewhere. It's still full, so no problem there. And the other thing I've had, this is more negative on the eBays, which I don't really talk negative on the eBays for a couple of reasons. Because first of all, everybody who buys from me on the eBays, I always send a quick flyer. Cory has seen it, where we talk about it's one side's the invoice and I thank people, and the other side's, hey, listen to our podcast. And I'd like to think some of you are new listeners. I'd also like to think that you guys are reasonable, but I know some of you aren't. I don't mind returns. It's part of the game. If you do have to return something, I don't even care why. I do have people, they send real detailed messages, blah, 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 which is fine. What I don't like is when you accuse me that, oh, I'm trying to rip you off. Really? From 1998, that's 1 year after eBay was formed, to now, over 5,800 positive feedbacks, which means my real positive would be twice that, but a lot of people don't give positives. They just, everything, if you mail me something, if I buy something on eBay, I will give you a positive. Half these people never bother. I know they got the item because eBay allows me to watch to see when things are delivered. But, you know, now I'm the one that's deciding to try to rip you off. I'm going rogue, people. You're the person, after 20 plus years, I'm going to fuck over on the eBays. So be it. The other one that really threw me was when guys said, hey, why don't you put some real pictures up? I've seen these pictures before. And you know, you can see my head snapping around. And I'm like, really? Everything on eBay is the actual item I scan or take pictures of. And occasionally I will use manufacturer photos. Like I've got a couple of these Star Wars dark box sets, that are shrink wrapped. And while I can tell you what's in them, I can show you what the manufacturer says is in them. And I use their picture, and I actually will say that. But that was kind of a weird left field one. Like, what a fuckwad thing to accuse me of, It's, first of all, I've had that happen. I have a friend who's a professional photographer, Shelley Lehner Illustrated, by the way, a photographer, I'm sorry. If you ever need somebody and you're in the Twin Cities area, does fantastic photography stuff. I don't think she does weddings, but we did pictures of the family. Dana had her graduation pictures. She's actually gotten professional work. Some of, I can't think of his name. American Idol, the guy that Sam hated and everybody voted him in. Taylor Hicks. He actually used some of her pictures on his albums. So she's actually very good. So I understand if you take a picture and somebody steals it. I've had a few times on eBay where I've bought something and then decided, I'll just sell it. And I asked the original, hey, can I use your photo? I've seen people take my photos. I don't really care if you're that damn lazy and you need a copy of my St. Swithin's Day by Grant Morrison and Paul Grist. See, we're going to get all those comics mentioned one way or another, Cory. We will do it. That was published by Oni, by the way. Whatever. But to be accused of taking it from other people, but, the Kray is quiet. The Kray is kind. The Kray just sent a note, hey, these are actual scans. If you want other pictures, fine. So just some weird eBay-ishness that makes me mad. Listen to me. I need a shot of something. Cory, what are you freaking on?
Joe, I don't know where my glasses are.
I see.
Last night I was watching movies and coloring and enjoying my time. And around, 11 o'clock, I was like, I'm tired, but I'm going to do something I never get to do. I'm going to watch TV in bed. So I went back to the old bedroom and turned on the TV, turned on the Roku, had to set up one of the apps that I use, which is weird because you would think that if you signed in on Roku and you set it up that it would be on all your Rokus, but no, you have to add your password to each Roku separately. So, and then I started watching Joe Bob Briggs' Valentine's Day special, which showed the movie Tammy and the T-Rex, which I'll talk about later, and kind of fell asleep halfway through the movie. And I knew I was going to fall asleep, so I remember taking my glasses off and, just kind of laying there. And then you just kind of, I'll just listen to the movie. And then you're kind of, okay, I'm falling asleep. I better turn it all off. Then I woke up and I came out here and I got my breakfast and I started doing some stuff. And I said, oh, I'm going to be watching some wrestling, so I better put my glasses on. No, where are they? And I went back to my room because I knew that I'd wore them there because I needed them in order to see, the TV screen in order to enter my information. Not by my bed. Not on the table next to my bed. Well, maybe I fell asleep on them in the bed. Took everything out the bed. Nope. Well, maybe they slipped down, fell on the floor. Nope. Looked all over. All I could think is that at some point in the night, they were on the blankets, and maybe when I went to the bathroom at 3 a.m, which, if you're over 30, you're a man, you know that you're going to do that. They might have got flung into the air and went somewhere. Now, the good thing is I do have the backup pair that I have, except it's missing one of the arms. And really, since the eye surgery, I kind of only need them for driving. Matter of fact, whenever I work on my computers or during the day, I don't have them on. But man, I found like 5 old pairs of glasses, but not the current ones, so that's annoying me. Second thing I'm annoying me, Joe was talking about his tire. I've had a tire with a slow leak for a while. And here's the thing, when it gets really, really cold, the air in your tire kind of shrinks. So, you have your tire inflated to 35. It's going to go down to about 32. So the tire that's had a slow leak, it's like, oh, I better fill it up. So I go to the gas station, try to fill it up, and they've got these automated things now where you put that on, and it's so cold that I have to wear gloves while I'm doing it, and that it didn't work. So it's like, okay, guess I'm going to have to take it somewhere to get the tire fixed. So Saturday, as part of my running around, I went to the tire place and said, fix it if you can, replace it if you must. There's something I didn't know about current tire places, Joe. Most of them don't have tires there.
Oh.
Because they don't, they may have some in the showroom, but they don't have, all the tires for all the cars. So they found that my tire had a nail in it. It could not be repaired. And if they took the nail out, the tire wouldn't hold any air. So I've got to go back on Monday to get the tires replaced. Because, they don't have tires. No. We have to get them from the warehouse, and the warehouse is not going to be able to deliver them by 2 o'clock today. So, Joe, what are you geeking on?
Oh, let's see. I have started something on Facebook that I've been meaning to do for a while. As you know, one of the fun things about having a collection is showing your collection off. And a lot of people do this on the Facebooks, and we talked about it here, things that are collecting stuff. But I actually started an album. So if you're interested, you can go to my Facebook page, which I usually keep. It's open. I don't. If I'm going to put it on Facebook, I'll say it to your face, so don't worry about it. Click under photos, under albums, and look for my collection, which so far just has one item in it, which is the famous copy of Amazing Spider-Man 178 that started me down this crazy road in the comic industry. It led me to meet so many awesome people, Cory included, opened up 2 comic book shops, countless hours of entertainment, this here podcast. And of course, the story is, it was given to me as we called it Kris Kringle. I don't know what they call it everywhere else, but it was just pick a name out of a hat and give them a gift type thing, because we had lots of cousins. My cousin Jerry gave it to me along with 3 Fantastic Four comics. I kept the Spider-Man, took the 3 FFs, went up to a local comic store who happened to be owned by Greg Ketter. That's your cue, Cory.
A damn handsome man.
Yep. And he bought them for 20 cents each. And of course, I turned around, bought 2 new Spideys. And lo and behold, there a collector was born. I talk about it on my, if you can go through it on the Solo Joe podcast of my Secret Origin. But I've got other fun stuff I'm going to put on as well. And again, I took the advice of Bo Smith, because he says, who's the manliest man in comics, by the way. And he said, he doesn't do the slab thing for money. He just slabs comics that are important to him. So anyways, my first one's up there. It got a Princely 5.0 because I read the living snot out of it. And that started me down the road of comics. And I'll probably talk about other things as I run across them, because the thing is, these are things that I'm keeping. Even if I hit that magic day where it's like, Cory, this is the last episode of Crazy Comics and Story. This is the last time I'm ordering any comics. I've got everything eBayed that I ever thought was imaginable. Yeah, right. You thought the Exiles were going to go to a weird dimension. Good luck with that one. I'm just happy to show some of this off. And really, that's part of it. You want to have some fun. You want to show off what you got. I did talk about, picking up a used book. I read about this online. It's called Hollywood Heyday, 75 Candid Interview with Golden Age Legends by Dave Fantel and Tom Johnson. And this was published by McFarlane. You can find it anywhere. Essentially what it is, what audacity, exclaimed actor Robert Wagner when he heard about the author's adolescent exploits of nabbing interviews with Hollywood celebrities. In 1978, Fantel and Johnson, they were St. Paul teenagers, local connection. They boarded a plane to meet with Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly. They had written the stars requesting an interview, and to their amazement, they agreed. So over the years, they got over 100 250 other stars. Lucille Ball, Bob Hope, James Cagney, Mickey Rooney, Debbie Reynolds, George Burns, Rod Steiger, Milton Berle, Frank Capra, Hoagie I can't remember.
Hoagie Carmichael.
Carmichael, yep. And this is the first time they published the book. It's been published since 2018. So, like I said, I got a used copy. And what a crazy thing to do as kids. Hey, can we come and interview? So I'm looking forward to picking this one up and reading it. And, of course, I did read other comics. The aforementioned St. Swithin's Day. It was published by Oni, or you can get the original one that was published in Britain by their company Trident. Grant Morrison, Paul Grist, in case you want a name drop. Basically, St. Swithin had been buried among the poor in a common churchyard of Winchester Cathedral, beneath the feet of passerbys in the rain from the eaves. When the monks moved his grave inside to a shrine in the cathedral, he wept in protest, and it rained for 40 days. It always rains on St. Swithin's Day, as far back as the boy could remember. It had been on St. Swithin's Day that he had buried his father those years ago. It was raining then, too. As a matter of fact, it seemed like it had been raining most of the boy's life. After 19 years of life, the boy decided that this Swithin's Day would be different. He'd had enough rain, he didn't want to live anymore, and he had a gun. He was going to shoot the Prime Minister of England. Go find it. Cheap copy, fun read, if you want to call it that. Another one that was oddball reading. I thought at first it was Cory's Fetish, but no, it's Renee French's Corny's Fetish. Cory, have you ever read this? It's a one-shot from Dark Horse, 1998. Yeah, I have to borrow this to you because, again, it's not one that's extremely expensive. Just a weird one-shot book. There's no explanation to it other than it's here. I don't have the original Dark Horse solicitation. Atomic Avenue has nothing. It's just Corny, his dog, and if you look behind him in the window, there's a silhouette of a woman getting a pickaxe through her head. We'll leave it at that. You can go find it yourself. The other one I picked up, I probably picked this up out of a dollar bin just because of the names to it. This was from Innovation. At the time, Innovation had a lot of licenses, and they did Lost in Space. This is Annual 2, Lost in Space, the movie. On the bottom, it's by Peter David, Bill Mumy, and Jim Key. Bill Mumy, Peter David, Jim Key, you had me already with the names, and I must have picked this up for 50 cents or a buck. Kind of my guess is a damning indictment of the movie industry. This sucker came out around 1992, and while I can't say it was fun, it was a good read. Definitely worth a borrow. Near Mint says it's $9. You could probably find it for cheaper. You probably find mine on the internet as soon as I'm done with it. The sad thing about Innovation was it never ended. They were in the middle of a storyline. If you remember the story with Lost in Space, originally they were trying to get to Alpha Centauri, and they got lost in space. Well, the final storyline, written by Bill Mumy, with art by, I believe, Mike Dukivitz. I think I thought he was South American. I don't remember. But at issue 18, this Innovation folded. They left a number of things up in the air, and the story was never finished. However, Bill did finish it via graphic novel, and I don't remember how I got it, if it was a quick starter or whatever. I rarely see the graphic novel offered, and it was just kind of interesting because he finished the story, which was fun. It was definitely worth picking up if you can find it. The story itself goes from issue 13 to the finale 18. These issues have a little more heat on them, probably because Bill Mumy was involved with it. So, and again, because the only way to finish it is to get to that graphic novel. It might be online. It might be on Bill Mumy's website, or it might not. I don't know. That's pretty much it in terms of reading and any other miscellaneous stuff I've been doing. Believe me, I've been putting hardcore on the eBays. I'm just having a blast digging through stuff and discovering things. And I tell you, Cory, the next shop I have, if knock on wood, I lose my job, or if I finally do get to that mythical retirement I've been talking about, I'm thinking I would have to open a store like Brian or like Mr. Zeros or Retro Mix, where it's just nothing new, but just old stuff. Because I could fill the shop. It's amazing the things I run into on my box. Like all that stuff I blabbed on the eBay, that was just stuff in one box that I found. I'm like, holy cow, where did this stuff come from? Garage sales, from the original comic store, from when I was hardcore collecting die-cast cars. So, like I said, more comics will go up, more other things. I just don't know. I'm telling you there, Strode. I just don't know. Well, why don't you regale the folks with what you're geeking on?
Well, most of the comic geeking stuff I've already talked about as reviews. But let's say that you've been seeing everybody post articles about that new Stan Lee book. Why don't you instead go to the Amazon or the eBay or your local comic shop and order a copy of A Marvelous Life, The Amazing Story of Stan Lee by Danny Fingeroth. Danny Fingeroth, former editor at Marvel, worked at Marvel for quite a long time. I read this book when it came out in 2019. It is a balanced book from someone who knows the comics business. It does not shy away from Stan's problems later in life, such as the elder abuse he dealt with, the scammy companies he got involved with after his lifetime contract with Marvel was ended due to the bankruptcy in the 90s. Gets into the issue with creator rights, but it also tells great stories about what Stan was like to work with, how he treated his employees. It's a well-rounded book that doesn't shy away from the bad stuff, but it also doesn't roll around in it like a pig in mud. I also out on the YouTubes found a TV ad for a comic Joe probably knows quite well, but I doubt he's ever read it.
Uh-oh.
The Whammo Giant comic.
Oh, I did read it years ago, and I did have it.
Yep, you had it at the shop. It was a huge comic. It was about the same size as the Marvel Giant books that are coming out now that you can use as a door. It was created by Whammo, and they basically hired Wally Wood and told him to put together a bunch of stuff so that they could put out a big comic book. It was not sold on newsstands. It was sold in toy stores. So the same stores that would have, your frisbees and your hula hoops from Whammo would also have this comic. It obviously did not do well for two reasons. One, they never made a second one. And two, it was available into the mid-'70s at some toy stores where, man, that thing was on the shelf forever. The one that Joe had, I still remember on the title, it said over 12,000 comic panels. But there is an ad for it that Whammo created that played on TV. And it's one of those things, now comics get ads. When I watch All Elite Wrestling, they have ads for DC hardcovers and stuff. But this is the 60s. They didn't have ads for comics back then. And it's really interesting to watch that. Non-comic stuff. Joe, you've got a Roku, right?
You want to know what's depressing about that comic?
What?
They're running over $100 now on the eBays.
Well, yeah, because
with it. Yeah.
Here's the thing, though, Joe. It's 40 years old. Other comics that came out at the same time are worth more.
Yeah.
You would think that would
trying
be worth
to find
a lot,
it
except
nice
nobody
shape.
cares.
Yeah, I think the one we had, we got rid of at the charity booth eventually.
Yeah.
So
there's not a lot of demand for it. I read an interview with Wally Wood from back in the mid-'70s where he said what he basically did is pitches and books he had done for other companies, they just cut up the art to reformat it for the bigger pages. So it was basically just a bunch of stuff that had been rejected. And was clean, because Wally took the stuff that wasn't clean and put it in his magazine Wit's End. Joe, you've got a Roku, right?
Yeah.
you have the Roku channel loaded up on your Roku? Of course you do, because if you have a Roku, it's there automatically. But have you ever looked at your Roku channel?
Occasionally.
You know what just got added to your Roku channel a week ago?
Mm.
New Japan Pro Wrestling is going to be adding I think it's a weekly show. But they started with 10 episodes that give the entire card for the 2-day Wrestle Kingdom 14. Wrestle Kingdom is their version of WrestleMania. So if you want to watch Wrestle Kingdom, it's there on your Roku, and I highly suggest you do. It's the last 2 matches of Jushin Thunder Liger. It's some amazing, amazing stuff. Basically, it's their WrestleMania from the year 2000. They always do it the first weekend in January, so it's a little over a year old. Cut into nice hour-sized chunks with American commentary. So just head over to your Roku if you've got the Roku channel, and you can watch and get caught up and see why I like New Japan Pro Wrestling so much. I also was given a free membership to the Shudder website, which is a horror-based website owned by the same people who own BBC America and AMC. And the reason I kept it was because it has a couple of series that I like, including The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. Joe Bob Briggs wrote a column in the 80s. Basically, he's a writer who created this persona of a guy who loves going to the drive-in and would review movies by how many beasts, how much blood, and how many boobs they showed. And there were a number of books, and the thing is, it's the guy pretty much lives the character now. There was a Monsterama series on TNT back in the 90s where he did sort of the same thing, except the movies were edited. Now that it's on a Shudder, they're not edited. So I watched the Valentine's episode, watched about half of it, because what it is, he has an introduction where he's got some comedy bits, and then he talks about the movie, and then shows a movie, and in the movie itself, he will give more stuff about the movie and the people in it, and then he'll show a second movie. So it's, a double feature. It's a drive-in. But Tammy and the T-Rex was starring in her first movie role ever, Denise Richards. And the story is that she had dated a guy who's kind of a violent jerk, and she's starting to date a new guy. The old guy doesn't like that she's dating a new guy, beats him up, leaves him at a zoo where he is mauled to death by a lion, and a mad scientist takes his brain and puts it in the body of an animatronic T-Rex.
Seems legit.
And the only reason they made the movie was that there was a guy who called a filmmaker and said, I've got this animatronic T-Rex for 3 days. Can you write a movie about it? Let that kind of settle.
Here, I thought Whoopi Goldberg T-Rex was
the story behind that movie is hilarious. She signed up for the movie, and then the budget was slashed, and the script was changed, and she tried to get out of it and couldn't.
I think she'd won the Academy Award in the meantime,
Yeah, and she could not get out of making the movie. But this one is more, Denise Richards, she was a model at the time. This was her first movie ever. And when you watch it, it's like, wow, she's really young. And the movie's just god-awful, but so god-awful it's fun. And that's kind of what Joe Bob Briggs is. It's all about the, terrible movies and how fun they are. So really enjoy that. Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for over an hour and a half.
You must really like funny books.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
If you want to know who controls you, look at who you are not allowed to criticize. Voltaire. Cory, hit my music.
I'm allowed to criticize everybody, aren't I?
Yeah,
oh, shit, it's Ghost of Vince Coletta!